Working the night shift means you're alone. The world goes to sleep, the sun goes down, and you go to work. The building is quiet. The phones do not ring. The only sounds are the hum of the lights and the beat of your own heart. But sometimes, in that deep, dark silence, you are not as alone as you think. Sometimes what you meet in the quiet hours isn't human. These are the stories of those who worked when everyone else was safe in their beds. They are stories of strange sounds, dark figures, things that have no explanation. They are the tales that come from the long, lonely hours of the night shift. The darkness has a way of playing tricks on you. A shadow becomes a person. A gust of wind sounds like a whisper. Leo was a young nurse. He worked the night shift at St. Jude's Hospital. The hospital was very old. Some parts of it were shut down. Leo's job was to work on the 3rd floor. It was a quiet floor. Most of the patients were old. They slept through the night. Leo liked the quiet. It gave him time to study. He would sit at the nurse's station. The only light came from his small desk lamp. The long, dark hallway stretched out before him. All the room doors were closed. The silence was thick. One night, it was very still. Leo was reading a thick medical book. Around 2 in the morning, he heard a sound. It was the soft, slow squeak of a wheel. Squeak, squeak, squeak. It was coming from down the hall. Leo looked up from his book. He listened. The sound stopped. It was probably just the old building, he thought. Old buildings make noises. Leo stared at the glowing red light above room 313. It couldn't be real. It had to be a glitch in the old wiring. He took a deep breath to calm his nerves. He had to go check it out. It was his job. He had to follow the rules. He started walking down the hallway. His footsteps echoed loudly in the silence. With each step, the air seemed to get colder. The warmth from his little desk lamp faded behind him. He was walking into the dark part of the hall now. As he got closer to room 313, he heard another sound. It was a voice, a weak, raspy whisper. It was coming from inside the room. "Nurse, nurse, I'm cold." Leo froze. His blood turned to ice. It was the voice of an old woman. It was faint, like it was coming from very far away. But it was also right there, just on the other side of the door. Leo's hand trembled as he reached for the doorknob. He told himself it was just the wind, or maybe another patient's TV from a different room. But he knew. He knew the sound was coming from room 313. He turned the knob. It was cold, so cold it felt like it burned his skin. He pushed the door open. It creaked loudly. The room was dark, darker than the hallway. The only light came from the hall behind him. It cast a long, thin rectangle of light onto the floor. The room was just as he remembered it. It was completely empty. Frank was a night watchman. He was an old man. He had gray hair and a slow walk. His job was to guard a giant warehouse on the edge of town. The warehouse was full of boxes stacked high to the ceiling. During the day, it was a busy place. Forklifts beeped, workers shouted. But at night, it was a different world. It was silent. It was huge. It was dark. Frank's job was easy. He just had to walk around the warehouse every hour and make sure all the doors were locked. He would punch a clock at different stations to prove he had made his rounds. For 5 years, Frank worked there. For 5 years, nothing ever happened. The nights were always the same, quiet and lonely. He would bring a thermos of hot coffee. He would bring a radio to keep him company. He knew every sound the old building made. The groan of the metal roof as it cooled. The hum of the big refrigerators in the corner. The sound of mice scurrying in the walls. These sounds were his friends. They meant everything was normal. But one night, he heard a new sound. A sound that did not belong. It was a Tuesday night. The air was cold, and a light rain was tapping on the roof. Frank was on his first round of the night. He was walking down a long aisle between 2 tall stacks of boxes. The only light was from his flashlight beam, cutting a white circle in the darkness. That's when he heard it. It was a soft tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was not the rain. This sound was coming from inside the warehouse. It was coming from somewhere deep inside the rows and rows of boxes. Frank stopped walking. He turned off his flashlight. He stood perfectly still in the pitch-black darkness and listened. Frank stared at the scratch on the floor. His mind raced. How could that happen? A crate that heavy would take a forklift to move. He was the only one in the building. He was the only one with keys. He slowly backed away. He did not take his eyes off the aisle where he saw the mark. He walked all the way back to his office. He locked the door behind him and pushed a heavy chair against it. He turned on his little radio, turning the volume up loud to drown out any other sounds. He did not make any more rounds that night. He just sat in his chair, listening to the music and waiting for the sun to come up. When the morning manager, a young man named Dave, arrived, Frank told him what had happened. He showed him the long scratch on the floor. Dave looked at it. He looked at Frank. He could see that the old man was truly scared. The night is a different country. The rules are not the same. These stories are just two of many. For every story that is told, there are 100 more that are kept secret. Night shift workers see things. They hear things. They learn to ignore the strange whispers. They learn to ignore the fleeting shadows. They tell themselves it is just their tired minds. They tell themselves there is a logical explanation for the door that closes on its own, or the voice that calls their name from an empty room. Because the other possibility is too frightening to think about. What happens when the explanation is not logical? What do you do when you see something that cannot be real? Leo saw the face of a ghost. In a hospital window, Frank heard a crate. He could not see it, and some stories, the really scary ones, never have an ending.